Hello.
Hello, and are we using Trinket?
No, we're gonna be using Pygame today.
No, like
Uh,
are we using like Trinket in Pygame?
oh, Trinket. You mean like the editor? Yes, you can use that.
Yes. Okay.
Uh,
What
so
about
we have.
what
Mhm.
about Replit?
You can use Replit too. That's fine.
Okay.
All right. So we have Haley. We have Michael. Hi, Sarah. So everyone is here. I'm just gonna give one more minute for rest of the students to join in. And we'll get started. And today, we will be working and building a very simple game, like space shooter. It's a kind of a very yes, Colin. You have any question? Your hands are raised. So it's gonna be
Oh,
a space shooter.
I
Mhm.
was just wondering what type of editor you are gonna be using.
I'll be using ideally. It's like Python ideally itself, which is not a
Oh,
special
yeah.
editor, a simple editor from Python.
Yeah,
So
I
I'll be
know
using
that
that.
idol.
Right. All right, I'm gonna just tell you about myself quick and what we're gonna do today and a couple of things to know. You can ask me questions, you can share your doubts in the Zoom chat box, okay? You won't be able to mute and unmute yourself because there will be more participants here. So use the Zoom chat box to share your ideas, share your messages and your questions. I'll try to reply you as soon as possible. What are we gonna do today? Today we'll be building a game in Python, a kind of a clone game to Space Shooter, which is one of very kind classical games, a 2D game. So it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be simple. I have a couple of materials ready, and we'll get started. And I'm gonna tell you about myself. My name is Yasin. I'm gonna be a teacher today. Very happy you all are here, and this is gonna be a Python scripting game tutorial. We're gonna learn about a 2D game development. Now, some of you know what Python is, some of you don't. So it's pretty much fine if you. It's just going to be your very first time learning or watching how Python script works. If you have idea about what Python is, you will. It will be kind of interesting for you to see how easier it is to build a game within few minutes. Now, you don't need to basically write down the code while I will be making the game. I want you to learn watch how I will be doing it. And after the lesson, you can follow up with the rest of the code. Sounds good? Um, make it interactive, make it active. So I want you to share your ideas, share your questions in the Zoom chat box. Okay. And I will be asking you some questions in between. It's going to be fun. It will be simple because we won't be doing any kind of game engines. This is all Python scripting. So yeah, I'll just change my avatar to something more animated to make it more gamified. So if you all are ready, can you all give me a message in the chat box and say ready here? Uh, Hi, Sarah. So give me a message like ready or yeah, cool. Sarah is ready. Oscar is ready. Uh, Michael is ready. Okay, cool, Kenny. Uh, Great, awesome. So I'm gonna share my screen and we'll get started. Just before we begin our game, I already made one folder on my computer and I'll be sending you all these materials later. So don't worry at all about it. Okay. I'll be sending you all the materials we will be using in this game. So don't worry about it. Don't get frustrated about how, oh, that code is going really fast. Don't worry about it at all. I want you to stay with me, all of you. Watch how I'll be building the game, how I'll be writing the code. And after the tutorial ends, you can try to do it by yourself. So what I have here, I have a folder, a simple folder named as Space Shooter. This folder has three images, one for the enemy, one for the player, one is the wallpaper. These are very simple images from Google. I downloaded, saved it to my computer. So this is going to act as my background. This is going to act as the main player. It's a tiny image though, because our screen are not that big for the computers. And the last is for the enemy, which is going to be the tiny one because there are going to be more of them coming. Now, the thing is, if you're using ideally, which is a Python editor, a very simple Python editor or PyCharm editor, this is going to be simple. You don't need to worry or make any changes. But for people who are using Tikinta or Trinket, or who are using Trinket or Ripple, I'll be giving you some messages in the code on what you have to change, because people who will be using editors like Ripple, which are online editors, and Trinket, you don't have enough space on your screen to run the game. So for you, you need to make a couple of changes, and I'll tell you what's the reason for that. So let's get started. I think you all are ready there. So yeah, now when you're writing your game, it looks like it's gonna look complicated, but once you understand what's the reason behind that line of code, it's really simple. So when you're making game with Python, you always need to say import pygame. What pygame is? Pygame is simply like any kind of library, or if you're new to code, Pygame tells you that you're making a game with Python. I'm also going to import one more library called random. Now, what do you mean by libraries here? I want to know. Can anyone share in the chat box a message? What do you think? What are libraries in coding? So the libraries like you're writing over here, what do they mean? Anyone?
I
In
love
real,
that. I know random imports several random
right. So the
functions,
mhm.
so you could, and I use random a lot and time. So
Exactly. Awesome. And also the word libraries, in real, it's all about books and information. But, when it comes to coding, it's all about how you can use multiple pre-built functions. There are so many functions and so much things computer can do, and so much things that are pre-made for you to be used as a code. Now, if this is your first time in coding, don't worry about it at all. These are just simple pre-built steps for you to build games by yourself. Now, to get the colors on your screen, Pygame uses RGB format. Does anyone know what RGB means?
Remove
It's
background.
exactly. It's about RGB means it's something with the colors. Can anyone guess? You can use the chat box to say it's
red,
fine.
red, green, and blue.
Yeah, it's about red, green, and blue. These three colors helps you to make all the colors in computer that you say. Whenever you open your desktop and you see, or you open your laptop and you see colors on your screen, they're all made by these three colors. And there are like different shades of red, shades of green, shades of blue. So we're going to be using two colors only today. That's going to be a black. So to get black, it's all zeros. And to get white, it's all 255 shades. If you want to get red, green, and blue, I'll show you how it works. So we have blue. And the process is basically the same. The only thing you will be changing here is the shade to add. So I'm going to add red to 255. Green is the scented. Blue is the end one. That's it. We got the colors we need for today. And basically, we won't be using all of them. We'll be only using black, I think some of green. That's it. Now, we need to design our screen. As a developer, you need to think everything from scratch. So we need to design how your screen is going to look. Now, for this game, we need two things, because Pygame is going to help you to make 2D games. Do you know what's the difference between a 2D game and a 3D game? Let's say I'm going to make a character here, and this character is for 2D. And this character is for 3D. Can anyone tell me what's the difference between 2D and 3D characters, or a game that you play?
2D is flat like paper, while 3D is more like an actual, like more realistic. Like
Exactly. Now, right, 3D gives you more a realistic feature, and you can feel things that they are like more real way. 2D is pretty flat, and the reason is computer takes 2D shapes in two lines. That's the x-axis, which is the horizontal line, and the y-axis. So everything that's happening is between these two lines only. But when it comes for 3D, it's going to be three lines: the x, the y, and the z, which helps you to give a third look to your character or your game. But today we will be working on 2D way. So we are making a 2D game. Everything we need to worry about are going to be two letters or two axes: x-axis and the y-axis. X-axis is the horizontal line, while the y-axis is the vertical line. Now we want to make a game screen on which we're going to make the whole game setup. So your game, let's say your game screen going to look like this. And your game screen is going to have two lines, the x-axis, which is the vertical horizontal line this way, and the y-axis, which is the vertical line like that. Now we have two lines. We can name this thing as width, and we can name this thing as height. The thing about Pygame is pretty simple. Looks complicated, but it's really simple. The thing is, Pygame says everything for the x is 0. That means x is basically 0 on the left side, and y is basically 0 on the top side. So if you keep increasing, or if you keep going to the right side, the number of x increases. And if you keep coming down, the number of y increases. Cool?
Isn't the 0, 0 the other way around?
Yeah, it's the same thing. The 0, 0 the other way around.
No,
So,
like, I mean, isn't the y supposed to be on the left?
no, y is not supposed to be on the left. The reason is, take a look. Just because there are so many texts around here, I'll explain you in a clear shape.
This would be 0, 0.
So take a look. So if you have two lines, so let's say this is y. That's increasing if you go down, and we have x, which is increasing if you keep going to the right side. Both of them are 0, 0 over here on the top left side, or you'll say, yeah, the top left side. But x increase if you keep going to the right. So it's like 100, 200, or maybe different number. The same goes for y. So it's 100.
I thought 0, 0 was the center because I use Scratch.
Yeah, Scratch is different.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah, I use both programming languages, I get confused.
so Pygame is using a different approach here. It's different from Scratch. It's like you're just stretching the screen and the number increase that way. So we're gonna be having two dimensions. I'm gonna make it pretty quick. Screen width, which is gonna be, I'll keep my screen width to be 1200 pixels. Screen height, let's say the half of it, 600. And I'll make a list, an empty list, which will have both the numbers here. So I'll say screen width and screen height. Let me just replace this number. Now, just to tell you what's happening in the game, I'll be drawing the sketch on the top left side, so you know what basically we are doing here.
Wait,
So
I'm
far,
trying to follow along. How do you open that?
you don't need to follow me right now because there will be a couple of lines which needs more understanding rather than following up. You can try to do the code right after the lesson. I'll be showing you all the materials. Sounds good? So we have the width of the screen, 1200 is the X, and your screen height is 600. So 600 is your screen height. This is what we did so far. Now we haven't made the screen yet because these are only the dimensions we have made. So I'm going to come down and write pygame.initialize and pygame.quit. And these are like the basic lines of code. Let's design a screen. So I'll say screen equals pygame.display, set the mode of the screen to size. We can give it a caption to our game, and we can name this thing as Space Shooter. Space Shooter. Yeah. And one of the variable is called running. What this variable does is it's going to check if your game is running or not. If it is false, your game doesn't run. If this is true, then your game is running. Now, this is just like a logical variable, has nothing to do with Python. I'm going to make a variable running, which is true. Now, this variable, I'm going to run a loop with it. The loop is while running is true. Or you can say while running, this does the same thing. This loop.
Do a similar thing with the break command.
Yes, the same thing with the break command. While forever or while true is a forever loop, and you can break the loop or the while loop with the break thing. But for now, we don't want to use break at all. We have a different condition to do. So I said here while running, and this means while running is true, do something. So while running is true, check for all the events in your Pygame. So we'll say for all the event and pygame.event.get. What this thing does is Pygame, your game is made up of hundreds of different events. So there are like basically hundreds of events happening in one of your game, any single of your game. How is that? What are events? Events are like you're clicking something, you're moving your mouse, you're pressing a key, your character is jumping, your character is moving. Anything that's happening in your game is called an event. So pygame.event.get is going to give you all the events happening in your game. Okay. Now we're going to run a condition. We need to check if someone is pressing the X button. You know, you don't want people to leave the game unless they want to exit the game. So we need to make sure the game does not end automatically. It's going to only end when you're going to press the X key. So usually, you say like, okay, I press the X key, this thing ends up, but not with Pygame, because in Pygame, you need to design your own game itself. So you need to design everything from scratch. So if I say if event.type is pygame.quit, that means if someone is pressing the X key, I'll give a comment here. Pygame, it means to exit by pressing the X key, X button. So if someone is pressing the X button on top left, on the top right side, we will say running false. And the whole loop, which is going to be over here, is not going to run. And your game stops. But if someone is not pressing the X key, we'll make the game run. Now, I need to for now, I'll just add a background color. So I'll say screen.fill. And let's say I'm going to use red as my background color. And in the end, I'm going to add pygame.display dot flip. Now I'm going to save the same code in the folder I have created that I showed in the beginning. I made a simple folder on my computer called Space Shooter. I'm going to save this game over there. So I'm going to save my game into that folder. As soon as I save the game, I'll run it. And I see a red screen in front. This means we made the first step done. Now the folder is pretty much empty. The folder has only 3 images that are one for the player, one for the background, one for the enemy, and the code file that we are coding. And it shows a red background. We will be customizing it completely. So let's start with the background image. To add the background image, you need to add it up over here. Now, just a warning for all the users who are using Trinket and not PyCharm, who are because you're going to be using Ripple or the online editors. Your screen size might be small, so your screen dimensions depends on the browser. Ideal one is, I think, 500 width, 500 height. That's it. You cannot go more than that because you will be using an internet website. So just for that. But all the ones who are using PyCharms or Ideally or any other Python editor which runs on your computer directly, you don't need to worry about it. Now we need to add a background. To add a background, first we need to load the image. So the image is saved in this folder. I want to get this image from the folder to the code. How can I do that? I'll make a variable called background. And let's say I'll say pygame to load the image. So pygame load the image. The name of the image is wallpaper. The name of the image is wallpaper. And the extension is going to be a JPG. I'm not sure. Let's confirm. Yeah, it's going to be JPG. So we're going to get this image over here. So wallpaper.jpg.convert. As we want the image to cover the whole screen, we need to place it on the right place. So I will say background.position equals 0 and 0. Now, once we get that thing, I'm going to come back here and not say fill the screen with the red color. Instead, we're adding an image. To add image, you say blit background and the background position. Let's run it. There we go. We got the image over here.
Why does that look more like a Starry Night Sky?
I got one of the image from the Google, so this was the best pick I could get. But this
Maybe
looks
it
cool,
is a
right?
Yeah, but maybe it is a Starry Night Sky.
Yeah, it's kind of a night sky. I was looking for some space kind of picture, but this is what I got. So this is how it looks. We changed the background color to a proper image to add. Simple, right? Just 2 lines to do. Now comes the very hard thing. Now, starting from here, it's gonna get very confusing. So don't panic. And if this is your first time to see the games getting built, just try to follow up with me. We're gonna be making a lot of things here. First, we want to have some classes. What are classes? They are like blocks of code. If you have done Scratch, it's like you add multiple lines of code together. So
I found a very tiny image.
really, I'll try to use it if you get time in the end. So I'm gonna make a first class. Now this is gonna be for the enemies we're gonna fight. So class name is gonna be enemy. I'm gonna name the name of the class as enemy. And this class is gonna be to add some players. So pygame.sprite class helps you to add a player to the screen. Because we will be having multiple things. I'm going to tell you what this classes does. They are like blocks of code which you can reuse in your code as many times as you want. So you don't need to rewrite all those
So they're
lines
like
all the time.
functions.
Yeah, it's just like functions, but bigger than functions, because a class can have multiple functions in them. So class is like a bigger parent of functions. So I'm going to have define. This is the default method. Just 2 underscore. And it's going to be, we only going to take color, or let's say, should we take
I
for the
feel like we
player,
should do color.
should we pick color for the enemies, or do you want to have a proper image for the enemy? What do you think? What do you all think? Should we have the color enemies, or should we have enemies like, you know, the image that I have for the enemy?
Image.
I feel like we should have color and size.
Colors. So if you're going to be playing with colors, you need to make sure that the player is also the colors. And the whole thing goes with the color thing only. But if you're going to go with image, I think we should try image, because that's harder and it's going to be something you will have fun playing the game with. What do you think? Right? Okay.
Wait, what do
So,
you mean by color and image? Do you mean by like the variation of the ships? Enemies?
yeah, the images are the
Okay.
ships. Yeah. So
I'll go looking up enemy spaceships right now.
okay, cool. Thank you. So we're gonna get the images for the player and the enemies and everyone. Sounds good? Sounds good, everyone? Okay, just give me 1 second. I'll close the files that are running on my computer. I don't need them. Okay, cool. And I'll just push this camera on top. Cool, great. Now we need to get an image. How do we get an image? So I need to write a file name here. We don't need to worry about the image at all from the beginning. This is a constructor, so don't worry about it. This is like a needed thing in your game. To load an image, I'll say self.image, pygame.image.load, and file name here goes, and convert, and self.image.set color key, which will remove any background to black. And self.rect equals self.image.getRect. Now this line is kind of something you should know. You know, in Pygame or any 2D games, your character movement is defined by the positions. And how do we know where your player is at? By doing rectangle shape to your player, it will add a rectangle shape around your player, which will tell Pygame where your player is moving on the x-axis, where your player is moving on the y-axis. Cool? So that's all what it's going to do. I'm going to come back and get this thing here, so you know what's happening. One more thing to do. I want one more thing. We want the player to be on the screen too. So we're going to make another class for the player. And it's going to be basically the duplicate of this class. So I'm just going to copy this thing. Paste it down here. Change this thing
Wait,
to player.
Is there a
Mhm.
certain size we should be using?
No, because I already have those images which are with the proper size. But if you want to make a game, you need to basically work on different sizes.
I feel
You definitely take just this image size to your Pygame image width. So it's 1200. Yes. Tell
I
me.
think we should just do color because it seems, I don't know, better.
I'll share another code file with this one, which is only going to be the whole game with the colors. Okay. So it will help you to understand how things work with the color too. But with the images, it's more fun. So I'm just going to keep it that way. Now I'm going to add another function here. This function is going to help the player to move wherever you move your mouse. Okay. So if you say position equals pygame dot mouse get position, it's going to read the position of your mouse and going to add it to the player X position because we don't want a player to go up and down. We want a player to only move on the X axis. So we're not going to keep it for the X. So I'll say self.rect. That's the rectangle you have for the X axis. Get the position for 0. That's the X position. So we're only going to be helping our player to move right and left. Don't go forward and backward. That's it. The final class we're going to make today is going to be for the billet because your player is going to fight those enemies off. So one more class to make, and it's going to be for the bullets. And these bullets are basically going to be, moving towards the enemies. So I'm going to copy this thing, come down here, make another class, just delete this thing. It's kind of all similar to each other. I'm going to name this class as bullets.
Are we actually doing this, like following along, or are I just watching?
Just watching because it's kind of complicated to follow along within that limited time. So I'll share the materials after the lesson ends and you know what to do. So you can follow up with that. Cool?
I think it's gonna be hard to memorize all this.
You don't need to memorize things. To learn better at code or do better at code, it's
I mean,
practice.
to reassemble the game, are you gonna be like sharing the code?
Yes, I'll be sharing you the code. I'll be sharing you the code.
Okay, I was worried.
Yeah, you don't need to be. So this function is basically for the bullets, which is going to send the bullets. So if your player is standing over here, he's going to fire some bullets on each mouse click. And if those bullets are going to hit the enemies, they're going to just wipe off. So we are done with the classes.
I made a similar game, but instead you can do, like, you start in the center and you can move any direction.
Cool. But this is only going to be on the horizontal one.
Coming from all sides in Scratch. So
Right. And here, cool. That's awesome. Now I'm going to also have one more thing. We also need to count the scores to make it more challenging, like an arcade game. So pygame.font.font will help you to add a text. I want the text to be on my screen. 25 is going to sound good. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Nothing more. I need to add a clock to make our game run smoother. Clock is not the time, it's frames per second. That means how fast your games works on your screen. That's all. Now we need to make a couple of groups. One group for all the characters in your game. So I'm gonna name it as all sprite list. Sprite is the another word for character. Pygame sprite dot group comes here. We're almost done. So we're just gonna wrap things up. Block list. It's gonna be Pygame dot. Actually, it's the same thing. So I'm just gonna copy that thing. Come it down over here. The last one is the bullet list, which is gonna be the same thing. And the score by default is set to 0. Now we need to add everything that we have made here into the game that we are playing. So yeah. Is there an extra dash on the Y axis before the equal sign? If it is, let me say. Oh, you mean this one? Okay, thanks for that question, Haley. This means the other way of writing this thing could be self dot rect dot y equals self dot rect dot y minus 3. So that's the shorter way of writing it.
I thought
Cool.
it was
It's not an error. It's a way of writing a shorter line of code. So you can write this way or this way.
Also, I'm confused. Is the addition way this one or plus?
The
plus?
plus is plus.
Okay.
Okay, you can take out the drawing so it might not destroy the other users. Thank you. So now let's put everything what we have made into the game to the game screen itself. Now I need to add enemies, scatter them around my screen. So I'll say for I in range using the for loop. Let's say we now have 200 enemies on the screen. And I'll say enemy, run the enemy class, which is over here. Copy that, come back here.
Wait,
And
excuse me, how are you gonna share the program with us?
you're going to get an email with all the materials.
Also,
Okay, I have to
and
leave now,
if you
so
and if
Sure,
you
sure,
want to
Michael.
share, and if you want to share the completed game with your friends, then just download the file and send it.
Yes. So they can play it without writing the code. And I'm gonna just, basically gonna send all these enemies around the screen, scatter them around. So random range using the random function, it's gonna scatter them to the whole screen width. And enemy.frec.y, let's say I'm gonna scatter them around the height, which is 600. So the player is gonna stand bottom. I'll say 550. You don't need to worry about these numbers. I have calculated them before the lesson to make things work faster. So block list.
Oh, and speaking of faster, the frames per second, it can actually slow your computer down if you put it too high.
Right. And one more last thing.
If you put anything too high, it will slow your computer.
Yeah, it depends on how fast your computer can process things, right? Yes, Kenny, you can ask me a question.
what if you want to like make your enemy bigger through each level?
You can write a condition, which is going to tell if you complete all the players or like you shoot them all down, you will add more in that next level. So it's like computer can work on many conditions. Like a simple game you make, they are having hundreds of different conditions running. Get it? Now we got everything to the game screen. Now it's like few 3, 4 lines to do, and we get the game running. And it is after we add the background music, or I mean the background image, we don't need to work with the music today. So the next thing is shooting it down. So else if event.type. This means if you're trying to press down the mouse button while you're playing the game, mouse button down, we're going to shoot the bullet forward. So we will say bullet equals using the bullet function or bullet class we made up here. We're going to connect the bullet or basically an enemy. Oh, I mean the bullet. And for bullet, if you want to have an image, I think I do have an image. I'm not sure. I'll get an image for bullet PNG. And bullet position will be connected with the player. So rect.y is going to be player position. And for the Y position for the player or the bullet, it's going to connect to the players. So it's just basically, we are sending the bullet directly to the player and it's going to travel towards the enemy. All sprite list dot add the bullet and bullet list dot add the bullet. And we need to update things happening. So I'm just going to come down here and I will say inside the for loop, I will say all sprite in your game, keep on updating. After that, we just need to write one more condition, which is going to say if the bullet hits the player or if the bullets are happening to be on the player. That means each time you hit the bullet, if it's touching the player, we're gonna let them wipe off. So one more condition there.
Wait, what happens? What happens if the bullet the player shoots is stuck in the player?
Oh, it doesn't work that way because the bullets positions are set to the player itself from the beginning. So the only thing they're gonna do is they're gonna travel forward. So this is one of the condition. We're going to keep it this way. And it's only going to work when the bullet is hitting the enemy only. If it hits the player, nothing is gonna happen. So this is for enemy.
I'm guessing the player has like laser shields.
It depends. It's just like it completely depends. So we have another thing we
would-
traded.
If it's fighting enemies, it would make sense for it to have a laser shield.
Yeah, these are things which you don't need to. They're like developer. They make an illusion of that, but they don't really matter. Like for coding, I didn't even add any kind of condition for laser shields, but still, it's not gonna hit. So it's all about game tactics. If you have an idea about creating a laser thing, you need to write a code with a little bit of designing to it, and it works. So I have for enemy into block hit list. That means each time a bullet hit to the enemy, we remove the bullet and we add that enemy inside this list and remove it, which we have already added. Remove it from here and add the score. It's kind of a little bit lengthy code to do. So don't worry if you're not getting it. It's like I'm trying to do a very simple way. It's lengthy code because yeah, this game is kind of cool. It's big game, but don't worry about the code. It's really simple to do. We're almost done. I'll say just like 3 more minutes, and the bullet travels forward. Bullet list. I'm going to remove it from the computer too. Remove from list, and sorry, I misspelled it. And we're going to come down, alt sprite, and that's it. List dot remove, and I want to remove the bullet. Now, the last thing, we have the background image to the screen, and I want to add all the players to my screen. So alt sprite, that's inside the list, draw it over my screen. There will be a couple of errors. Let's try to fix it up, and we are pretty much done. And yeah, last line.
Also, what's the rect for?
The rect is basically going to tell if your player is moving. It's just going to count the player position. So let's quickly summarize what we did. So far, we made the color codes. We add the screen dimensions. We made the list. The first list is for the enemy, which is going to tell where your enemy is moving. Or you can name this, yeah, it's for the enemy. It's going to add all the enemies on the screen. Second class you did was for the player. It's going to tell you where your player is standing and how you can move the player. The third class is going to tell about the bullets. So each time you hit the mouse button down, it's going to send the bullet forward up in the air. Then we made the screen and we get a caption or the title for your game. We add the background image and we made some couple of logical code here, which is going to make your game run until someone exits. Fonts, design, and frames per second, couple of groups, and the score set to 0. Then we add for iron range, this is like basically scattering enemies over your screen and adding them to the list. Cool. I need one more thing. I think it's gonna be, I'm just gonna change it to block because I have added it block over here. So I'm just gonna copy that, place it, place it, place it. Good. And changing with the variables, we have added the player, set the player position, and here is your main game code. This is if someone is pressing the X key, you stop the game. And if someone is pressing the mouse button, you basically send the bullet up forward in the air and towards the player. Here, we keep on updating what's happening in the game. This condition tells, I'll write a comment here, to fire bullet and make sure it hits the enemy if you're a good shooter. And these are the conditions for that. And then we have alt sprite screen dot blit, and then we have alt sprite dot draw over the screen. That's pretty much it. There is more to do in the game. Definitely, there is definitely more to do in the game. We'll be doing it. We'll be doing it right after this. I will give you the complete code to it, and let's run. Now, before we run, I need to get an image for the bullet. Let's, instead of drawing, because usually I draw things, but I have an image for bullet ready with me. So I'm just gonna get the image for the bullet now. Just a second. I think I have it over here. Okay, I got it. I think this image is gonna work. So into the folder we have, I didn't add any image for the bullet. So I'm going to add the image for the bullet here. It's tiny, tiny thing. So let's run the game and see how it works. And there we go. Cool.
Crazy.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, the player is basically standing way too down. I need to increase the screen size, it seems. I'm going to send the screen size to
It's a little
700.
crazy.
And there we go. Cool. Yeah, you can see the player, right? So when you're trying to move the mouse, you can move the player. If I move the mouse to the right side, the player goes to the right. If I move the player to the left side, the player goes to the left. And if I press the mouse button, there we go. I can just try to shoot them down. Pretty cool, right? And there's definitely a lot of additions. Now, what can we do to make this game go pretty cool? We can add sounds, we can add background musics, we can add the score points display, like showing you on the top, like a leaderboard. We can let the enemies come towards you all the time. And there's like so much thing more to do here. Pretty cool. So like, just to summarize things up,
Yes,
this is going to be the base
but
game
it did a
for
little
everything.
crazy.
Yeah.
It looks a little crazy.
It looks so lengthy here. All the code we did today. I know it was like a little bit extra time. We did extra 10 minutes to the tutorial, but it's something we made up with very few lines of code, kind of a game there, which can run on all the computers. So I'll be sharing you with all these materials, what we have done today here, and also one more other file of the code, which is the whole same game with only shapes and colors. So I'm going to send both the files to you, all image materials, so you don't need to download anything from computer, and try to see if you can run it on your side of the computer itself. Sounds good?
Okay.
All right, the last part of the lesson. I want you to ask me questions if you have any, everyone. Go ahead. Does anyone have any questions, any doubts, anything you would like to ask me? Colin, Neve, Connie, Haley, Sarah, Oscar. Any questions? You can type in the chat box if you have any questions.
Nope.
Cool. You're welcome, Haley. Anyone else?
How do you
Yes.
turn it on?
How do you run the game?
Yeah.
Have you done Python before?
No. Like, how do you like turn on the game?
Oh, it's
after you're
basically
done?
if you have done Python before, you can basically right click and open the code and run it from there. And if you haven't done Python anytime, you can just simply run on the game file and it runs. Cool.
Yep.
Any other questions, anyone? So we are pretty much done for today. Hope you all enjoyed it. And
I have
yeah,
a
it was,
question.
yes, ask me, Colin.
Does anybody here have coded before? Besides me.
Oh,
I've coded a little bit before.
cool. So this is kind of something new for you all, it seems. All right. So thank you all for joining today, and I hope I'll see you sooner. Give me a high five. You can give the high five to the camera. And thanks for joining. 3, 2, 1, and go.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you for joining. Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.